So in this week's topic is going to be random effects. So this is a little bit general version of ANOVA that we're going to discuss. So we'll have two parts to it. So one is we will do a one-way random effects of ANOVA. Maybe I should put capital letters here, perhaps, just sort of make sure ANOVA is an abbreviation. Then I'll try to discuss two-way mixed and random effects of ANOVA. So I'll explain these terms as I go along. So that's the agenda for this week. So let's just begin with a recall. Let's just recall. Maybe make a kind of recall. So what's a two-way ANOVA model? So let's just discuss that for a second. Just what we've been discussing so far: a two-way classification ANOVA model. Sorry, ANOVA spelling. So what was this? This was the observations were Yijk, so Yijk, and we had I was between, let's say, 1 and a number R, right? And we had J was between number 1 and M, and we had K was between 1 and something that depended on both I and J, so Nij, right? So this is what we call as the grouping in the first grouping variable. So this is what we'd call as that there are M groups in the second group variable. So M groups in the second and this is what you would call as there are, for each I and J, there are Nij samples, right? There are Nij samples, and samples the recording in the ith itself. So there are Nij samples in the ith itself. The observations we had, right? Let's go. Very good. And what was our model? Our model was Yijk was equal to, you had a fixed overall mean mu, plus you had an alpha I plus a beta j plus an epsilon I, j, and k. Right? So then the assumptions were the following, right? That we assumed that these were independent. So each epsilon I, j, k was like normal with mean 0 and variance sigma square, right? So independent variables or uncorrelated. And to make things, if you go back to our first week when we discussed, we had this issue called constraints to make the model estimable in some sense. So what are the constraints we did? The constraints we could use was, we'll use the following, that is we'll say that the summation I equal to 1 to R of alpha I is 0. That's one constraint we will have, right? The second constraint, we'll do the same thing for beta as well. That is summation j equal to 1 to m, beta j is equal to 0. That's what we will have, right? And then, so in the two-way model, which I sort of, I just want to sort of, this is one, so in the two-way model, this sort of, you can have a combination of, combination factor as well. So what I could do is, I could just say, I'll have y is equal to mu I plus alpha I plus beta j plus a factor that involved both. So it'll have gamma sub ij plus epsilon. Okay, so we'll have this the constraint that summation over I and j, gamma sub ij was equal to 0, right? And maybe we could do it separately for each I and each j. So we could have that this is equal to 0. So let's say I equal to 1 to r is equal to 0 for all j, and similarly for all j. And you could have the same thing for all I. So summation j equal to 1 to m, gamma sub I is 0 for all I. Right? So let's say I make it right precisely. So I'll write as 1 less than equal to j less than equal to m, 1 less than equal to I less than equal to r. Okay. Let me make it a little bit so make it a little smaller so I can put in one line. Very cool. So those are the constraints that we have. So we'll make it a little gamma so it's so clear it's gamma. Very cool. So these are the constraints of the model that we think we have. So far, all these in the example you've seen, these are well-defined categories, right? And some designs they have been subjects as well. Like you repeat measurements of the same individual or more individuals as well. And you think of alpha I as the group effect, and they're all deterministic in some sense. But now I'd like to sort of employ your thoughts onto sort of making things random. So I'd like to sort of start the discussion of random versus fixed effects. So let's take a simple example. You go repeated measures where more than one measurement is taken on the same individual. Okay, so you think of the following experiment: repeated measures of more than one measurement, more than one. These are identical, so for everybody, but measurement is taken on the same individual. So in such cases, the group effect alpha I can be thought of as random, and because we only sample a subset of the entire population of subjects, right? So in such cases, so it's until now we have done with the fact that only epsilon was random, but in this case, what we could do is in such cases, the group effect, that is the alpha I is the group effect, alpha I, let me call it alpha I now in red, so right, can be is best thought of as random. And the reason is that because you're only sampling a subset of the entire population, not the entire population. So because you're sampling a subset of the entire population. Very cool. So a group effect is random. That means we can think of the levels we observe in the group to be samples from a large population. So this will enable the following. So if we assume this group is the group effect is random, then this will enable us to think that the levels we observe in that group are samples from a large population. This will enable us to think, or think of view, I would say. Let me say view. The levels we observe in that group to be samples from a larger population. Very good. And for example, let's do an example. This is like you're doing the same treatment but at different medical centers, right? So let's do example. So the example of this is the following. You collect data from different medical mentors by thought of random, right? So collecting data from, so treatment data from different medical centers. That's what you're doing. And you can think of the center as random, right? Center by thought of random. So center variable, the grouping center might be thought as random, might be thought of as random. Very good. Or you have different campuses, then the campuses can be thought of as random as well. Very good. So let's do a simple another example. Let's say you're interested. Let's do an experiment. So here, let's say you're interested in you drink. It's summertime now, and you drink a lot of buttermilk. You're interested in how much calcium is there in the buttermilk, and how does it vary over certain brands. So how much calcium is there in, let's say, 500 ml of buttermilk. Right. So this may vary across brands, right? So let's write that down. So it might vary across brands. Right. And what you do is you pick, let's say, 3 brands of buttermilk, and you record how much sodium content is there in a 500 ml glass of buttermilk on brand. Right? So what's the experiment you do? The experiment you do is you pick let's say 4 brands of buttermilk. And you record amount of calcium in, let's say, a 500 ml packet. That's what you do, right? And then your quantity of interest, let's say quantity of interest, limit it down, the quantity of interest in this case is just the mean calcium level, right? The grand mean. So grand mean calcium content. That's what you're interested in. So you want to see if there's variation across brands, if all the brands have the same. So, and then that's one thing, and then you want to know variability across brands. Very cool. And so who are the individuals? The individuals are in brands, repeated measures. Let's say pick 4 brands, record, let's just do a fixed number of bottles, let's say in 8 bottles. So you have 8 bottles and 4 brands. So brands are your individuals and repeated measurements are your bottles. Right? So in this case, brands are your individuals in the population that you're sampling, and these are your repeated measurements. Okay, that's the question. That's something that's one way of posing the question of when I want to take random enter effects.